There we go. Getting started with iMapInvasives. I'm Jeff O'Handley. I'm the program director for Otsego County Conservation Association, and joining us is Donna Vogler, SUNY Oneonta, and also newly minted board president for OCCA. And we're very happy to have you. And I'll cover the briefly what we'll do this in this program is a brief introduction to invasive species, what they are, why you should care, and an overview of several key species that we are to watch for and that we're looking for more data on in particular, or that are potential not here yet but could be soon species to watch for. And then we'll cover how to, basically getting started with iMapInvasives and how to set it up. Well, not so much how to set it up, but how to use it, basically. So we did set up the ground rules of please mute your mic, but we can zap that one off of there. Barb has entered the waiting room, so let's see if we can get her in. You can ask questions at any time. And well, as I said, since this is a small group, I think that we can pretty much dispense with those ground rules and just jump in at any time. So just quickly, what is OCCA? Otsego County Conservation Association is a private nonprofit environmental organization. We were founded in 1968 by a group of citizens who were primarily concerned with sustainable forestry. And over the past 52 years, at this point, amazing, the organization has grown and to cover many different areas, many different environmental issues. We are, have done a lot of water quality work, a lot of solid waste and recycling work. In the last few years, we have really gotten involved with invasive species in particular, both with management of invasive species and education. Our mission statement is right there, and we do pride ourselves on being a science-based organization. That we really like to present facts on the situation. Okay. That's basically us. And one of the things that we do really encourage is involvement. Different invasive species activities we've had with including water chestnut removals at a couple of different water bodies, and Japanese knotweed, terrestrial invasive, something that is lots of fun to be involved with. And at the end of the presentation today, we do have a couple of dates of things that you could potentially be involved in with us or with others as we go forward. So I believe with that, I'm going to turn this over to Donna, who is going to take over the screen and take over the presentation.
Okay, let me see if this shares. All right. So I'll probably leave it up in this format. It should be well to see. Can you see the really brief introduction to the invasive species monitoring?
I can.
Okay, yeah. I'll assume you all can. So this is going to be in two parts. One, to look at why we should monitor and why our interest is in invasive species. I'm going to give you 4 to be looking for right now that the region has an interest in, and then I'll get into the nuts and bolts of the whole iMaps process itself. Since you are a steward, you probably already know what invasive species are, and the 2 main criteria is it must be not indigenous to the area, that is a non-native or alien species, and it must cause some kind of harm. It can be harm to the environment, economic harm, human health, but those are the main criteria. So say northern snakehead, this is a major predator of native fish species, affecting native species as well as the whole habitat. In the middle is the giant hogweed, which is of human harm because this is the one that can cause the photoreactive rashes. And there is an effort in the state to battle it specifically. And then on the far right are young little emerald ash borers burrowing back out of their ash tree, ready to fly onto some new one. Why we should care, the main reasons for why we should care are really where all the funding comes from. habitat degradation, loss. So the Nature Conservancy, the Audubon Society, OCCA are greatly concerned about what invasive species are doing. The DEC is concerned about the loss of fisheries, wildlife, certain tree species, recreational opportunities, the same thing. Lake associations are concerned with them. And then finally is the agricultural end of things, crop damages or diseases to either forestry or livestock, or in a lot of the things I work with, pasture and pasture grasses. Again, this is probably a little bit of a repeat for anybody who's worked with invasive species, and you've probably seen this graphic. That is, as a species newly invades in an area, it often takes some time, and that's the lower axis, before it's even recognized that it's there or recognized that it's growing faster and becoming invasive. That's the time when it would be best to either prevent it or eradicate it, but unfortunately, we're often not aware until it gets into that mid-range, where the best you might be able to do is contain it. If it gets out of bounds or it is a particularly aggressive species, it will go up that slope into the red zone, where the sort of the best hope is to just manage it and control it. The goal of this effort, though, that we have is really on two ends. For those that are widespread is to push them down into the level where we can contain them, keep them in a particular watershed, prevent them from getting into a larger lake system, etc. Or on the other end, that prevention or recognizing these species before they start to overwhelm the system. So before we start to manage, how do we determine what is out there? And again, this may be a bit of a review for you, Leanne. In the state of New York, we have divided the entire state into 8 Partnerships for Regional Invasive Species Management, PRISM. I had enough time to gather 5 of the symbols, but there's all 8 have their own sort of central office. It is a public-private partnership. The public part is usually the Department of Environmental Conservation. That's the source of the money. But the private is whatever organization. So CRISP, for example, is housed within the Catskills Center down in Arkville. Some of these others have other nonprofit agencies sort of holding or putting the organization. The purpose of the organization, that is the purpose of each individual PRISM, is to set the priority both for what species need management or control or monitoring, but also set prioritizations as to where the money should go. In the case of the CRISP region, a large chunk of the money goes to supporting the lake stewards, but it's also going to a number of other control efforts from top to bottom of the region. So here's the quickie guide to 4 major invasives to look for. I want to bring up water chestnut, both because it is already, as you can see from the map there, fairly widespread. But this is one that we hope to move from the rapidly spreading and push it down towards the containment. I'm going to call Jeff back in to jump in and give a little bit of the history of the management of water chestnut in Goodyear Lake. But I consider it a real regional success story. Jeff?
Oh, thanks, Donna. And I apologize because I never got you that before and after shot. I don't remember when water chestnut was first found in Goodyear Lake, but I know that OCCA and the Goodyear Lake Association got together in, I believe it was 2005, to start doing some control work. And I think part of the impetus on this was that I think folks were getting ready to go in and hit it up with herbicide. And so some folks said, well, we don't really want, the community around Goodyear Lake was a little leery, about herbicides. So some research was done, and it was determined that, there can be some success with hand pulling. And so the Lake Association and OCCA got together over a weekend, and they got a dump truck from the town of Milford and proceeded to remove, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember the numbers. It was in the tons over the course of a weekend. And the then president of the Lake Association has told me, he said, you wanted to cry. He says, because he said they were out there for hours and hours pulling water chestnuts, and you'd see this massive pile in a dump truck, and then you'd look out at the lake, and just it looked like you hadn't made a difference. It did cover several acres of a portion of the lake called the Stump Lot, which is a sort of a shallow area at the northern end of Goodyear Lake. And there were concerns about it getting, further into the lake proper, as well as spreading downstream through the Susquehanna, the Susquehanna system. But over the years, what's happened is, we've continued organizing both, weekend polls with volunteers. Lake Association members, we know, go out there all the time when they're on the water, and if they see it, they're pulling it. And now, when we go out there on a weekend and, over 2 or 3 hours, we spend more time paddling back and forth and less time pulling, because it's become much less prevalent. There are some known hotspots that always seem to have some chestnuts, and but we also know that if we stop paying attention to it, it's probably going to come back, because those seeds can remain viable for quite some time. But it's definitely something that is containable. But as with any invasive species control effort, we know that it's going to take dedication in terms of time. In some cases years, such as the water chestnut, and effort. A lot of effort goes into it. So, but definitely something that is controllable.
I sometimes liken it to weeding a garden. If you have a lot of weeds in the garden and just let them go, you're not going to get any crop out of it. And it's a lot of effort to clean it up. But if you've really made an effort over a couple of years of keeping your garden down of weeds, when one pops up, it's an easy thing to pop it out and return it to a better state. So I would say water chestnut, at least at Goodyear Lake, has been contained. But as you can see from the rest of the map, this is one that's out there, it's widespread across the state and spreading. So if smaller water bodies can be reduced and kept free, that's probably as best as we could do. I don't think it's coming out of the Hudson River.
Probably not.
Yeah.
And I do know that the stewards have been successful. I have seen some recent stories about stewards intercepting water chestnuts on the way into Canadrago recently this year. So
that's right. Yeah. The
effective program.
All right. So this is a plant that's on the flip side of that. This is one that is not particularly widespread, not throughout the United States, nor within New York. It's popped up in some areas. But when it pops up, it can, just like water chestnut, really spread fast and thick. So you'll see the hand holding it on the left-hand side. It floats just below the water's edge, and it can really get a full head of steam before you really realize how many of them are out there. They will flower probably in another few weeks, where the flowers will pop above the water surface. But when you look out of the lake, you don't really see them. Now, these are relatively small. If you recognize the plant duckweed, you can see that in the picture on the right. They're larger than duckweed, but they're not a large, robust plant. They don't look very harmful. This is one that is easily transported around because of its relative small size. And plus, people mix it up for white water lily. And so they think, oh, those are just water lilies. I don't need to worry about those. I knew of a case, and actually this was in Sullivan County. A woman deliberately found some frog bit, I think it was in the Bashakill, and moved it into her little farm pond because she thought they were young water lilies and she liked the look of water lilies. She later discovered the error of her ways, but this just brings to point the need for people like stewards to monitor these things before they get spread around. This is one that I've put on because on the map on the top, this is an iMaps map, and then we'll talk about how those are put on. But you'll see the number and the density of the dots is not particularly high. On the other hand, I believe yellow iris is wildly underreported for a couple of reasons. First, it's pretty. And people, when it first starts out, don't mind that it's on their lake edge, which is usually where you see it. But secondly, people just think it's an iris, just nothing to be worried about. But you can see the picture on the left. This is out of, I think, British Columbia. where the yellow iris has completely choked a little water throughway between sort of two connecting ponds. They are apparently attempting to bring this down the way that Jeff and his crew did with the water chestnut. So as you're looking around, the yellow iris is just starting to bloom now. And so it's probably the easiest right now to find and report. And you can look in our own region, there's just not a whole lot of reports out there, but I really believe it's far more prevalent. And then last, certainly not least, is the spotted lanternfly. This is one that is a major threat to fruit crops like apples and grapes. And you talk about New York's economic basis, you know, apples, cider, wine, grapes, this insect can do major damage. It is, and I put it down, coming in from Pennsylvania. We know it's going to spread here just by the way it's moved around. Every now and then you hear a report and then say, well, it was dead when it was discovered. But I think it's everybody's anticipation that this is coming our way. The reason why I put the tree of heaven together with it is the tree of heaven, Ailanthus altissima. Altissima means tall, you know, towards the heavens. The tree of heaven is the spotted lanternfly's preferred host. And so if there is a tree of heaven nearby, they will first go to that before going on to the apples and grapes and other things. And so it's useful to know how to identify Ailanthus so that we can use that to monitor for the spotted lanternfly. If you look at the picture of the Ailanthus, it has a compound leaf, so the leaves are fairly large. I mean, we're talking a good foot, foot and a half long, but they're distinctive because they have like a little sort of, and I'll show you another slide, a little sort of gland or piece at the base of each leaflet. And some people say they smell awful. I think it smells a little bit like maybe rancid peanut butter. There's a little peanut butter odor to it, but it's one of those fairly easy to identify trees. The spotted lanternfly, both as the larval form, that is the sort of the spotted form when it's moving around and drilling into the trunk, but also the when the adult opens up its wings, you'll see all of the spots. So two things fairly easy to see. This is just showing a slide of the spotted lanternfly as bad as it can get here on the trunk of a tree. And they can congregate in the hundreds, if not thousands. There's some really almost freaky videos out there of them. They are not only causing damage to the trees and the woody plants that they're on, when they tap in, they suck out the juices and then they poop out this, quote, honeydew, which is a really sticky mass that also fungi-like, and it really makes things unappealing. Get down to the next ones here. So for the tree of heaven, in the little red circles, that shows you where those sort of glands are on the leaf. But when you just crush the leaf, you could really smell that. They produce seeds somewhat like ashes do. They're a little winged thing with a seed in the middle, but unlike ash, where there's a seed at one point and a little wing that comes off of it, in tree of heaven, the seed is in the middle and the wings are on the outside. And they produce a lot of these late in summer, and they sort of stand out from afar. So this is actually one that you can sort of look through and find it by binoculars. So those are the four things that I just want to sort of remind everyone who's going out there, especially this time of year. Look for things like the water chestnut and the frogbit in the waters. Look for the yellow iris, because they're just so easy to see and distinctive. Start looking for the spotted lanternfly, and that's one that if you see it new in a county, that's probably going to be the first record for that county. So how do you find out more about them? I'm going to show you the DEC's website. Actually, I can just jump to that, but that's actually a really good place to start because they have a lot of links to the other kinds of sources. The Catskills Regional Invasive Species Partnership, as well as all the other partnerships for regional invasive species management, each of them has a staff, they maintain species lists, they have a web presence, they can sometimes link to a lot of other pieces of information. So they would be certainly a one to look at. Let's see, there's something in chat, Jeff. You might want to check the chat. I think I got a little alert here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was just posting links in there as
Oh,
you were
okay.
talking. Just
Oh, you're posting, okay. And then the Otsego County Conservation Association that Jeff and I are representing here, we are willing to provide some kind of field trainings. And so if you would like to, Leanne, or if you're up in this area, we're a small enough group, we could go out with you and look at some of these others. I want to encourage people, if they haven't downlisted iNaturalist, this is one of those for the big cell phone users, I'll put it that way, where once you have the app loaded, you can just shoot it at an insect or a plant or a leaf, and it will search through and give you some tentative identification. It may not tell you whether it's invasive or not, but if you're uncertain what it is, that's a useful site. And then finally, probably the king of them all is the iMaps website and how we'll do that. So I'll save that for later. This though, just want to show the DEC's website, and just to sort of look at all the various bars at the left, the different areas for invasive species, marine, terrestrial, aquatics. It does provide a link to all of the PRISMs, these partnerships for regional invasive species management, the councils, the education. But if you also look on the right-hand side, it also provides a direct link to the iMaps website. So if nothing else, you can always use it as a jumping off spot to look at some of the other areas. So I see that you are on mute, but if there's any questions, please just jump back in and I'll cover it. Okay, on part 2, I want to go through iMaps specifically. And so if you were to have used that link in the DEC or just Google the term, you'll probably get to a page that looks something like this. Now, in the link through the DEC, it puts you directly to the New York invasives website. But if you go and just Google it, you might get to the overall one that you have to then go and find the New York one. Okay, iMaps is multiple things. It is a national, and I would actually say international now, database. There's at least, 2 provinces in Canada that are using it. There's now about a half a dozen states that are regular users and a number of states that are starting to download information into the overall map. The state of New York was one of the early adopters. New York was there for iMaps 1 back in the Stone Age. I think that was 2010. It was developed, I think, in Florida, and it was Florida, New York, and one other state were in iMaps 1. So this is definitely a database that is growing by leaps and bounds. It is also a citizen science tool, and that's probably what gives it its, the depth of its data. What I like about it is, while it is citizen science, unless you have a really good picture that somebody can confirm you have what you think you have, there's somebody behind the screen checking all of these points. And so if they see somebody listing, say, a yellow iris, and it's out of somebody's garden that's not the invasive yellow iris, they will then go and delete the point or make it unconfirmed. So you may see even now confirmed and unconfirmed points. It's good about separating that. There's a lot of other internet apps that people just list all sorts of crazy things. Many things are wrong. In the case of iMaps, I am really impressed with how clean they keep the data. And then finally, it's a really useful management tool. Now, if you're just doing it as a lake steward, you don't really get a chance to get that end of it, the sort of the tracking and the management. But say if you have a lake that is overwhelming with some invasive, and you try a concerted effort, in iMaps, you can track the success or failure of the methodology that you're using. You can also manage to have early alerts. If you're somebody who's interested, say, in woolly adelgid, you can sign up to be alerted anytime someone finds a new woolly adelgid site, and you get an email alert for it. And this is helpful for people tracking particular species. Groups like the lake associations are interested in just looking at their lake and can focus on the invasives not only in their lake, but in neighboring lakes that are likely to invade them. So it's equally good on the science end of it as it is on the user friendliness, citizen science end of it. Now, Jeff will be taking us through the mobile app, which is these days where most people start. But those of us who are in the Pleistocene age of the iMaps, it was originally only on the computer and you had to go out, get a GPS point, and then bring it back. But both pieces are still there and they're integral to how the thing works. That is, once, say, you take a point on your cell phone, it is uploaded onto the cloud and you can clean it up and add far more details on the computer. If you have very good connection and a really deep data plan, you could also do it on the confines of your cell phone. But I will admit that tiny screen makes it almost impossible to do some of the larger mapping. I don't know how some people do it. So even though you may only use the cell phone part of it, eventually you'll need to go use the computer part, and there's some advantages to looking at it that way. So I'm going to cover the online computer part. Jeff will go back and cover the mobile part, but the two will meet in the middle. So first steps, you need to do the account online first before you add the app. And so if you know of others who are interested in joining iMaps, it's going to work the same for them, whether or not they take a training or not. You need to have a password, an email account. Once that's established, that's what's linked up to the app that you can later download. And again, this is sort of revisited. You can just run the observations on the mobile app on your phone, or you could also add the whole web application on your phone or on a bigger screen that's going to be a lot easier to see. Now, once you go to the, this is the online part. If you look along this top bar, I'm going to end up going live on this, but there's more than just the observations and the reporting part of it. You can look for distributions of them. Don't forget this resources drop down, because it can provide a lot of information on both how to use iMaps or other kinds of opportunities that are out there, other training. And quite frankly, most people go to more than one training. So if you feel you need a refresher and a brush up course, having taken ours, it's no offense on us. After you take ours, you sign up for another one, because sometimes it just helps to hear it twice. Even though we'll give you the recording, you may want to do that. Okay, and if you just...
And in fact, sorry, I was going to break in. And in fact, if you sign up for one of the other trainings that we'll mention at the end, they will probably cover this anyway.
This part, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you forget where you go, you could either go to that DEC website, or you could just Google iMaps or iMapInvasives. And once you're there, it will point you to the New York way. But every time you're going to need to put in your email account and your password, and then you could just log in from that point. What that will give you is the map view, which is where most of us all start. And within the top buttons, I'm going to sort of talk about some of the top button usage as well as the sidebar usage. So again, for most people, particularly novices, making observations, creating a record, I saw this plant here, is probably most of what you're going to use. Now there's a number of criteria you sort of need to understand of how you make a report. Let me just go to this next slide. People use iMaps for a number of things, but primarily making observations is going to be the big one. In almost every case, you're going to start out making a point observation. I saw this garlic mustard right here at this one point, and you take the GPS point. But iMaps has the ability also to do a whole area. So if you were to take, a lake, or I often work in a huge pasture that might be 15 acres in size, rather than saying I had 217 of these points, you could just say within this area, they are, thinly distributed. Under iMaps observations, you can also say whether you saw the plant, or sometimes people are looking for specific spread. Like say, if I went out and I did not find spotted lanternfly, I found an ailanthus, a tree of heaven, but there's no lanternfly. It would be of use to say, I checked this area and it's not there on this date. And then maybe 5 years later, someone will find it there. And they could say, well, it wasn't there before this time, now it is there. And so as we do this, you'll see whether it's a point or an area, or a presence point or an absence point. Let me just go to this slide to sort of illustrate that. So for presence, this tiny little yellow or pink dot on the top graphic, that's just a point occurrence. And that's how most of your points will go. But if you decide to draw, and you can highlight and draw a particular polygon like this, you can say it was present throughout that area, not just at that single point. So that's what we mean by the area versus a point. Under the detected and non-detected, if it's an area that you search for a particular species that was not there, you do have the option to highlight it, draw a polygon or a dot, and say it was not there. In the future, if you wanted to manage for the species, say there's some chemical that was applied, or they mowed or they cut the trees down, you can subdivide a polygon and say this lower part was treated, the upper part was not treated, and then you have a way to monitor and follow it into the future. So this is what I mean by iMaps is useful to a number of people beyond just noting where something is or is not. So that was the making observations. The next thing is you might also want to know, okay, in my lake or in my backyard, what are the nearest points that people have found invasive species? I'm going to show you what the filtering tool is, but if you look on this top bar where it says create a record, that's for the observations. Finding filter records will be another very useful function to follow up on. And once you have filtered it down, if there's a particular point you see on the map, like, oh, that's next to my aunt's house, you can hit that point and get details. And details will actually give you the GPS coordinates. It'll give you the information, somebody wrote about it, it's behind the barn, or, the population is very large. You can read a lot more details about a particular point if you're interested. I just want to mention, I'm not going to explain setting up a project, but if you're working with a larger group, sometimes you may want to use the project to house all of the data from a number of different people on one thing. So as an example, I'm a college professor. I had a bunch of my students in plant ecology. How many were there? 15, 18 students. Each of them were adding points on iMaps for our campus. Well, I wanted to see which students were doing the most work. And so it was convenient to put everybody in one project so I could search that project and to get just their data. The points still go onto iMaps large. So the fact that there's a project doesn't mean some are in a project and some are on iMaps somewhere else. All the points are on iMaps. And then there's all those other uses that I'm not going to go into, but as you get more expertise in using iMaps, just recognize that you can sign up for email alerts, you could look at treatment from the past, and there's features that were present in iMaps 2. They weren't able to bring over into iMaps 3, but they will in the future. And one of the ones I missed that they're still working on is the ability to say, I want all of the invasive plants for Sullivan County. And it can search, filter, and give you an Excel file that you can download and print. And when they get back to using those queries, that will be useful to a lot of people, myself included. The various help and resources, so you can go and get help right on iMaps itself. You can get help through the New York iMaps subsection of that, which may be more relevant to New York species and New York organizations. And they do have a pretty good help desk. I ran into a problem where I had 2 different emails going, and they helped sort of sort things out. And this training, as well as multiple ones, are stored in various ways to review later. So I guess there's a whole YouTube channel just for iMaps training. Now, before I turn this over to Jeff, I'm going to get off the PowerPoint and go directly into iMaps, the online version. But Jeff will cover the mobile application and some of the details of that. So let me see if I can now get to, let's see. I need a new share.
And do you have any questions so far?
Yeah.
Not really. I got to use iNaturalist in college for a while, so it seems pretty similar to that in a lot of respects, although a lot more detailed on others, which is good.
All right, so here's the live sort of version, home reporting. Eventually we're going to end up on maps, but what the different kinds of resources and upcoming trainers and tutorials that you could do. I'm going to log on.
Right now, I'm not seeing
that. Oh,
that.
you're not? Okay.
Nope, we're seeing your file explorer.
Ah, let me see. Let me stop share. Let's try this. Do you see that?
Yes.
The iMaps part?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so let me. I will log on. Now, a person can use iMaps without logging on, but they only get just a little taste of what it does. If you're at the point where you're reporting things and getting into it in a larger way, you really need to log on and be a full participant. I will warn you that iMaps take sometimes a little time to log or to get moving, and so don't rush it. It's one of those tweaky things that if you keep hitting enter, enter, enter 100 times, you can overwhelm the poor thing. So rather than on this face, create a record, which we'll go to a little bit later, I want to turn your attention to the functions on the left. There's an extremely useful button here, Find My Location, because if you want to report a point that's somewhere in the middle of New York, rather than every time having to go all the way around and searching for it, especially if you're on a cell phone, finding your little backyard in the United States is hard. So just by hitting Find My Location, which is what I just did, it finds the GPS point for, well, now you know where I live. I live right here. So I live right next to a nice little city park. And within this area, I could either look for records, create a new record, sort of a more observation, but actually, Jeff, I'm going to leave that to you to work on the mobile one, which is how most people do. What I'm going to sort of show is on the filtering the records. I can pick a species. I was going to look for a good species, and I can't think of one. And then also mention fake species. Let's see. Well, let me do one with a lot of points. Garlic mustard. We should find a lot of points there. And you can restrict it to a certain day or out of a particular group or a project like our class project. But when you apply filter, if you give it a little time to think about it, you just need to shrink the window. And since there's none reported for this area, oops, I went the wrong way. I'm zooming out. There. And again, you have to wait for it. Okay, so here somebody found it. You can see that little green point here. And the further out that you go, you'll get more points. Here's one in Riddell State Park. So this is, again, it shows you some of the limitations that very common invasive species are wildly underreported because, you know, they're everywhere. But for any one of these points, you can click on it and get details. Who saw it, when they saw it. There's an actual presence record, and you can go ahead and follow up on that. There's a place here for even more details. And so I just wanted to show this view. This enables you to look at what invasive species are in your area, either totally or, let me just do all of them here. Let's just eliminate this. Clear filter. So now I'm asking what invasive species are there. This is the unfiltered version. So this is garlic mustard and, you know, purple loosestrife and everything. And you can click again on any one of these and get some kinds of details about it. Under the record, and again, I'm going to leave this more with Jeff, but I said that you could do presence or non-presence detected. If there was a treatment, you can do that. It also allows a multi-record. So if you were to do, say, a small park, you can, rather than getting separate GPS points and separate everything, you can just do a big polygon for the whole park or the whole lake, and then list the 20 species that were found or some that were looked for and not found within that lake. So sometimes that multi-record is a good place to start. I'm trying to think. Yeah, you could also search for a particular address, you know, a particular town that you might be interested in, or if you knew GPS coordinates, get to that. And then this triple bar is the whole menu, which is the same menu essentially that you would have on your cell phone version, on the app version, which again, I'll let Jeff kind of cover that. So either Jeff or Leanne, do you have anything to add so far to this or questions?
Nothing to add from me right now.
I don't have any questions.
Okay, well then I'm going to stop sharing and leave the controls back to Jeff.
All righty. So I know that when let me just see if I did this right. I haven't done this right yet. When I first started using iMap, I had to do that same thing where it was, you know, make the record, you know, the observation in the field and then go back and add it up. And this is, you know, using the mobile app is really, really makes your life a lot easier. Okay. Now, in terms of making life easier, I'm going to try to share my phone and hopefully I'm not going to mess anything up here.
He did do it earlier, and I was very impressed.
Do it earlier and I'm not seeing it right now. So
make
I'm
sure
not quite
you share
sure why.
screen.
Yep. Let's see. There's the application. It should be coming up. It came up before. All right, I may have to kind of pop out of here. So bear with me for a moment while I try this. You're probably seeing all kinds of things that I don't want you seeing.
No, all we're seeing is our faces.
Oh, okay.
So there's right. That's what I'm saying. I think you're going to need to hit share screen because you're not sharing.
Right. I just have to get the app to be working first, and right now it's not. Okay. See, it's being it's being cranky.
It's just like kids, you know, they
It
work
is. So,
on the
all
practice,
right.
but
All right. So let's do this. I'm going to have to, okay. It takes practice. And I did this before too. I really did, honestly. Uh, okay. I'm having trouble just getting my zoom back too. And my controls. All right. Okay. So let's share screen. All right, I'm going to share. Oh, wait, here we go. Here we go. I was, you know what? I think I was just looking at the, no, wait. All right. So what are you seeing now? You're seeing something that, okay.
I'm seeing what looks like maybe, I don't know, it's not.
You're seeing a need help on the
Yes.
app there. So I am trying, here we go. Let me,
Yeah.
all right.
This
Are
looks
you
like
seeing my
a
Samsung DEX now?
no, not yet. I think you need to stop sharing and then share.
Ah, okay. Okay, here we go. Resume share. There we go. Yeah.
No, oh,
Okay,
something's
here we go. There it is. Okay. Here it comes. Here it
no.
comes. All right.
Okay. I'm waiting. Oh,
so
oh,
so that
ooh, I think
there it is. There's our nice little pig screen. So
yes.
sorry about that delay. All right. So this is actually my phone now. Sort of. It doesn't. My phone doesn't really look like this. But anyway. So Leanne, did you get to the point of downloading the iMap app at this now?
Yeah, I did. I created my account and started doing stuff from your PDF that you
Great.
shared in the email.
That
So
that's perfect. So then we don't have to review any of that sort of thing. So if you have your phone handy, you can let me find, there it is. You can open up the app, and this is, if you've done the whole thing where you've logged in and everything, then this is what you should get when you open up the app. He said,
yeah,
hopefully. Okay, good. So you've gone through, you've signed up, and just for anybody else who might be watching this at some future point, it's always important. It's critical that you, as Donna mentioned, that you sign up on the desktop first, and then when you download the iMap app for your mobile device, that you use the same username and password. Otherwise, you will get an error. And a couple of years back, they changed things around, and I think they changed the username system, and it screwed everything up. Okay, so this is what you get, and it's kind of nice that they show these little features, you know, that kind of points to where everything is, that points your menu is here, and that your to add observation is up here, and how to kind of navigate. And then all you have to do is tap anywhere on the screen, and you're going to get something like this. Now, yours is probably a blank green field, right? You'd have
yeah,
the header bar up here and a blank green field. In my case, on what you're seeing here is what they call a card. So on the 12th of June, last Friday, I think that was, I made a record for an observation in the field, but I didn't upload it, partly because I said, oh, I'm going to save this for Wednesday, and partly because I had a misadventure, fell in the water, and had to, you know, leave before I could do that. I will admit that. So the key area for right now that we want to look at is our menu up here in the upper left. And if we tap that, one of the great things about the mobile app is that it's really simple. It once you get down to it, it's pretty simple to use, very self-explanatory. So on our menu, this is pretty simple. Select all will mean that any of the cards you have on your intro screen here will be selected, just like that. Okay, or you can select none. And you can also select it by basically navigating to the little checkbox and clicking it. Okay. And then I would go back and say select none.
And
Right.
you know, one of the things that I have used this for is sometimes I'll make a record, but I'm not completely sure it's that particular invasive species. And so you can collect everything and set it up here. And when it comes to uploading everything, not that record, I want to save that one until I'm really sure. And then,
Right.
you know, if you're not sure, then you can delete it. So
Right.
I
Right.
like that feature.
Yeah, and it's also good if you're in an area, you know, if you have a unstable connection or, you know, no access. Again, the mobile app will work without connectivity, so you can make a whole bunch of records, and just, you know, you're not in a place where you can upload them. You wait till later on. Okay, so we'll come down here to the preferences for a second before we deal with the other things, and you click on that. And you go through this. I don't know if you set up your jurisdiction species list. Now there's, I think, I can't remember how many states it is. It's something like 11 states now and at least one Canadian province. And
Yeah.
when you look at your list of potential available species that we'll do later on, if you didn't have a state selected or jurisdiction selected, you'd get all of them that you'd have to scroll through. So, you know, since we're in New York and I report in New York, that's what I selected. You can go back and change it. So if I did a family trip to Maine and I found something, I could, you know, just change the preference as needed, and you can always change it back. If I ever make that trip to Saskatchewan that I've been hoping to do, you know, we can report invasive species there. Okay, let's see. Ooh, now how do I get back out of there? There we go. Um, then you come down, your username and password, which must match. And again, you don't change that unless you're changing your username. You've changed your username in the desktop app first. Okay. And I think you did this already where you retrieve the IMAP list. Every so often I get a notification that something's out of whack. So if you just simply click that, it'll give you a moment to kind of upload, and then everything successfully retrieved. So it's not bad to do that every once in a while. Okay, moving on down the list, and I actually do have to tab through this because I am on this program instead of scrolling through. My feeling is that I personally use the common names because it's a lot easier for me. I don't have those Latin names memorized. And then the custom species list is nice because if you only wanted to focus on, say, the 4 species that we mentioned, you can go into this list and you can check them off. Like if you're only working on a narrow set of plants or animals or something, you would go through this list and just check, check, and then click OK. And I'm not going to go scrolling through this thing. It's mighty long. Okay. And let's see.
Right, and there is a way to customize if you're only going to be working with, say, 15 species.
Right.
You can customize a smaller group, but for a lot of us, I want to leave them all in there.
Right. Yeah, I have not narrowed mine down either. I just figure it's fine. Picture quality, I can't remember if the default was 50% or 100%, and I changed it. But it's one of the things that is very important when you're setting up a record is that you try to get a very good picture. So I've just gone for the best picture quality. Personally, it may affect your upload speed, your data at some point. Okay, and then also save photos taken in iMap app to the device photo library. I have checked that just because that way it's saved on my phone and I can come back to it at another time. Okay. And these are kind of some of the defaults. I've used the road map as opposed to the satellite image for the phones. The map zoom is that's again, same default there that I've just used. You can change things like, from the US system to the metric system. I am old enough that I still think in feet. I think most Americans do probably. We never made that change that they promised. Now, for me, in this case, with OCCA, we do have a couple of projects that we could be working with. The Rapid Response Early Detection Program is one. I've also signed in for the Catskill, CRISP. You work in this program, so you know who CRISP is, and also the Capital Mohawk Prism, since we do a lot of work kind of in that overlapping area. My default is to leave it without a project just because, I'm not, and I'll just fill it in as needed depending on what I'm working it on at any time. And my default organization is OCCA. I could probably change it. I do believe that if, I actually haven't done this, but you do need to request permission to either join another organization or to sign on for a project. Did I get that right, Donna? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
So
can.
like if you were working in Otsego County and you wanted to add aquatic invasives to our early detection project, you would sign up for the project. We would get a notification and then approve you to be part of that project. So, and
Okay.
then
I don't know if the
That makes sense.
stewards have their own project or how you do it, but in any case, if you're never sure, just go ahead and record the point. It just appears in the bigger picture.
Right. And then people who have notifications set up to receive, a notification anytime there's a frog bit found within the region, they'll get those emails anyway and will be alerted. Okay. I still have this set to show the welcome instructions so that every time I open up the app, I get that little screen with the circles and arrows and things. Just, I don't know why I don't change it.
Oh,
So,
I didn't. I guess I never really realized I could turn that off.
I think that might be new. So that'd be, and then you save or cancel.
Okay.
So that's pretty simple. So, and then also, actually, I also discovered that the help setting here is pretty good. They give you a nice introduction, and I don't know, I may have to tab through this, or maybe I can, oh yeah, okay. So they give you kind of the basics on how to do this if you ever get a little bit lost in the app. The one thing, well, I'll come back to this later on. So, but the help feature is pretty good. Okay.
Don't forget the fake species.
Yes, we will do fake species. So actually, if we go back to our preferences and we are going to our customized species list, I believe is where we want to do this. You have the ability, I'd have to, I think I have to, wait a minute. I don't think I can, I'm not sure how I navigate through this now.
Oh, let's see.
Oh, yeah, I'd have to do this.
Because on the mobile you can't write F for fake species, and it gets you there.
Right. So, and I missed it. I have to go back up. Can I go back up? Yes, I can. We're almost there. Fake species. So this is one, and this is, I think, kind of built in, so I don't know that you have to select it necessarily, but fake species is something that the iMap folks put in here for workshops so that people could practice making an entry, and it's pretty helpful. That way they're not getting fake records. So when they get an entry that has a fake species entry in it, they see that and they'll ultimately delete it within a short time period. Okay, but it's good to have on there. Now, I think if I clicked this when I do my species list later, this is the only thing that would come up. So I don't really want to do that, but it is there. I think it's a default in the system. So, okay, so let's go back. All right. So what we want to do here today, and again, if you have your device handy, we can go over and click the Add Observation. Okay, and this is what should come up. And this gives you, the first great option is to take a photo using the camera, which is usually what you're going to do. If I do that, I will get a picture of my table. So now if you have taken a photo elsewhere, you can also use a select photo from a library, and it will go to your phone and we'll say, look, here's our, did that collect? It's not going in.
That does look like a fake species.
It's pretty fake. It's not loading here for some reason. Okay, well, I would have added that.
Oh,
No image selected.
I encourage you, Leanne, even if you're always skittish about doing things, if you just add a bunch of fake species and just get used to it, they wipe it out after a day or two.
Right.
So you don't have to take care of it. They'll just wipe these things out. But it is useful to get used to how to do things.
Right. Yeah. So my for whatever reason, this photo is not showing up. You can see that I have some other invasive species photos in there. Oh, there we go. There's a little. Okay. All right. I think it's, you know, it may be a matter of, okay, that might do it. Or it may not. Okay, but that's okay. All right, it's not, for whatever reason, it's not picking my photo. So we're going to go without a photo. Now, generally speaking, as Donna mentioned before, if you don't have a photo, they will probably not confirm it, at least not for a while. I had an entry from Frogbit from last year on a property that I could not get a photo of, and it sat for over a year unconfirmed until they realized that I could positively identify Frogbit. They have recently counted that one. So, so you would take your photo. My recommendations on photos is, you know, always try to make it clear. I'll just go back to this for a second. If you can get an item in there for scale, that is always helpful. In some cases, you know, you want to make sure you show the detail, you know, some of those distinguishing features, that way they can, you know, the folks who are confirming this have a chance to really, you know what they're looking at, as opposed to some sort of blur. I tend to take rotten photos, but every once in a while I get a good one. Okay. So once you've gotten your photo put up there, you notice that our custom list is set. So we're going to pick down here, and so we see that we have a long list, and you're going to scroll all the way through, and we're going to come down to the fake species for testing. Okay. And then you have the opportunity for species detected or species not detected. So as Donna mentioned this before, again, if you know, people aren't sure if a species is in the area, and part of the job is to find out. If you don't find it, that's also a valid record, and that's something I think they've just started doing that a couple of years ago, right? I think that's new. So
That's new to iMaps 3. They used to have separate categories for certain species, presence, absence.
Mm-hmm.
They allow it for any species.
Right. Okay. So, and we click our species detected, our data is automatically filled in. All right, where are we here? Okay, 617. Now I have the GPS checked on this. And now, as Donna said, now you know where I live. So we zoom in, and this is actually pretty accurate. I was a little worried about this. You know, it's telling me the accuracy is ranging between 8,000 meters and like 1. But the pin is pretty solid. Now, the one thing I have never been able to do, and Donna, I don't know if you've been successful with this, they say that if the pin is not where it should be, that you can drag it. I have never been able to do that.
So what I've done is you can go back to the online version and record.
Right.
And that's how I've done it, because my GPS is just crazy.
Right. So if, you know, so we have the GPS, and this is the thing now, I tend to be one of those people who does not have the location on my phone on all the time. So usually I will have to go in, if I know I'm going to be doing records, I'll have to go in and turn the location of the phone on first, so that it will record my location when I do this. And you can, if you uncheck this, that's when you can theoretically move the pin. And yeah, see, I don't know.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I didn't even know.
Yeah, but it's not working. It's moving the whole map around instead of just the pin. And I have never figured out how to do that. So, okay.
I've only done it on the online one.
Yeah, that's what I've done too. So, and you know, down here you could manually change the numbers yourself. To actually, you'd have to unclick the GPS and then change the numbers. And you know, I don't know, I'm just kind of playing here. It should theoretically move that pin. I think it did actually slightly. Okay, but we'll just go back and let it move. Okay, so you come through the map, you come to your project, which is optional. So again, we have a couple of different choices for me for these different projects that I would click, since this is definitely not an aquatic invasive here in my house. You know, I'm going to leave this one blank, and oops, yeah. And we'll move on. OCCA is our organization. Then you would enter in the time that you spent searching. So, you know, we've been here for about an hour, the size of the area. It gives you check marks, and these are tough. Sometimes you have to estimate, you know, how much did you find? Up to 10 square feet. And then the distribution. So they're going to ask you, you know, is it trace? Is it sparse? Etc. So we'll say, hey, this is in this case. All right, and then you can do additional observations, and this is pretty handy. So, you know, for making extra notes, either about the project you were working on or some observations on the plant or animal that you saw. Okay, and then when you save it, now we see we have 2 notes here. Okay, and you can go back and you can edit. If you click the little pencil, it's going to bring up the record again, and you can go and make some changes to it, or you can just leave it alone. And then, you know, when you're ready, when you're in an area that has a stable connection, this is where we go and we can do, you know, we can do our select all, or we can do, you know, we can take this one off. You know, we'll just pop this one real quick. There's my picture, my lovely picture. Okay, but I'm confident in that one. Okay. All right, so we want to remain on the page. So now I guess I'm committed to going all the way through. Okay, and that location is where we found it. So, and this is sparse scattered plants, clumps along the riverbank. So again, we'll save that. And so then once you're satisfied, you get to go up there and you do your select all. And here's the big choice, you know, what do you do with it? So in our case, we're going to upload the selected. And they always, you know, like any good program, they're going to give you that sort of double choice. Like, are you really sure? Are you really sure? So we're sure. We're going to upload it, and then we wait. That's taking a while. Wait, did I only have the one clicked? I think I did. Now I keep getting warnings across my screen that tells me my internet connection is unstable. So this may take a while. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. And then what's really good about this is that you now have the opportunity to use the online version, either through the desktop or through your phone, and look at your records again. And, you know, the phone pretty much, the mobile app pretty much only gives you the opportunity, I think, to really do the point observations. And then you can go back on the desktop and, you know, change that, you know, add in polygons and do some editing to the records there. So, and that is it. So now as we're back to our home screen, all the cards are gone. It's just the blank screen, and that's it. That's our the iMap program. Hopefully clear.
Now, it is, but here's a question for you. So
Sure.
With the detected species, you always want to try and get a picture up. But if you're saying that a species is not detected, you don't have to put a picture up, I'm assuming.
Right. Okay. Now, they actually, it's funny because they will ask you for a photo showing species not detected, which is kind of an odd thing. And I know that last year we walked a good stretch of creek looking for frogbit, and we didn't find any, you know, and we were putting this record in, and so I just took a picture of, you know, of the creek and added it. So they do like a picture of it. I don't exactly know, you know, yeah. So you can put a picture on there, or you don't have to, if it's a not detected.
Okay. Yeah, it just seemed like counterintuitive to put a picture when there's not supposed to be a thing there.
Right.
So just wanted to check.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions? Or Donna, do you have anything to add?
No, I really don't. I you know, it's one of those, I guess my advice to you, Leanne, would be to add a point in the next 2 or 3 days Because once a week, or God forbid, a month goes off the map, boy, do you forget all of this. And so if you could just find something as simple or stupid as it might be, add something, and then you get a little more of an idea of how it works. And then once you start on it, people tend to get hooked onto it. I mean, there's some people that are just mad observation makers. And I know, Jeff, you wanted to mention the challenge next week.
Oh, yes.
This webinar comes at a good time right before the challenge to give you even more practice.
Right. So let me just pull this up because I think my share is paused here. So let's see. All right. Did I resume? No. There we go. Did that resume? What do you have here?
I have the Samsung DenX.
Oh, okay. Let me do a new share. Just kind of strange. Okay. There we go. Right?
There we go. Yep.
Okay, so the invasive species mapping challenge begins on June 24th, and it runs through July. Ooh, I don't remember the exact date. 13th, I think. I want to say it's 2 or 3 weeks long, and they are focusing on 4 specific species, where this is again one of those things where they're really trying to increase the number of observations made. And I know it includes jumping worms, frogbit, I believe was it water chestnut? I'm gonna have to look for this. And I cannot remember the 4th one. It's on their website. It's on the iMap website under trainings. And it's 1 to 2:30 p.m. So as I said, I think that they're probably going to do an overview on, everything we've done here today, plus covering the specific species that they're looking for. And so the idea is to get people out in the field and looking for these species and uploading as much information as they, as many points as they can to help get a better sense of the distribution of these species across the state. And I will try to get you, I need to get the website link up there. So I will find that one.
Yeah, that's what I was, actually, Jeff, you can keep talking. I can dig it out. I'm gonna.
Okay. And then in terms of the involvement, now I know you're down in Sullivan County, so you may not be able to make this one, but on June 27th, we are hosting a paddle and pull at Silver Lake in New Berlin. And that lake is loaded with invasives, unfortunately, but they do have a particular problem with water chestnut and frogbit. So we are trying to roust some volunteers and members of the Silver Lake community, and the actual lake owner and his family usually come out and help pull as much as we can. COVID has obviously altered some things a little bit, so we'll be practicing social distancing on the water as much as possible. And then on July 8th, we are actually doing a webinar spotlight on invasives program, noon to 1, covering wild parsnip and probably some other roadside invasives. But then we will be looking to do some other, water chestnut and pulls out on Goodyear Lake and things. So you can always check out our website, OCCAinfo.org, for other programs as they come up. So that kind of covers it.
Cool.
So let's see. I know, Donna, you are looking, right?
Yeah, I was looking under projects. I
think they have it listed under their trainings. So I'm going to try to, okay. Here we go. I think I found it.
You found it?
I think so. Yeah, here we go. The iMap in the invasive species challenge. So this is at, I don't know if you can see this. Leanne, it's, oops.
Yes, it's on the screen.
Okay. So, yeah, Tree of Heaven. Okay, there we go. So we pretty much covered almost everything that they're covering. So, and first prize contributors.
July 8th.
Oh, through July 8th. Okay, yes, sorry.
Yeah.
I was about a week off. So, all right. Any other questions?
No, I'm good. This is a great resource.
Good. If I'm still sharing this, we'll just make the plug. So here's our main website coming up. And we do have terrible picture of me, but we have a YouTube channel, and our recordings for other webinars that we've done are up here, which have included a couple of other invasive species, such as hunting the emerald ash borer. We did a food waste webinar with a kitchen demo, which is pretty neat. So all sorts of things. So this will be up there at some point, I guess. So there you go. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.